Look at the camera over here.
Yes. Vanessa, the green button. Hi, everybody.
Yay!
We're here. We're back. Welcome to Coffee Shop Conversations.
Sorry we're late.
Yeah, we're a little late. We're in a different coffee shop today. It's Labor Day, so ours, Juicers, is closed.
Yeah.
So we'll miss you, Veronica. But where are we again?
Fab Cup.
We're at Fab Cup.
With these pretty little cups.
Cute.
Yeah, it's cute.
Really nice. I took my cup.
So we'll give a little plug over there.
Yeah, Fab Cup on Forest Avenue. We're on Staten Island, of course. So we're a little slow today because I don't know why I'm tired.
Play button without us even knowing. She was like, okay, I'm ready.
I don't know why I am tired because I'm not the one contracting and having a child within the next maybe 24 hours.
Oh, can we pray for that? To like everybody who's watching right now. Like, I mean, it's only a minute in, so I hope you're still watching. Please pray that a baby comes.
And she has this little boy.
A little nasally too. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, what happened? You're still not feeling well?
No, I'm feeling much better. I'm just.
So Vanessa, Danielle, and I, Camille, are happy that you guys are with us. I know a lot of people are going to be away on for Labor Day and everything, but I'm sure people will be getting on later on to watch the recording. So we just wanted to record it for you and hope you enjoy the next chapters of More Than Enchanting, Joe Saxon's book. We're on 6 and 7 chapters. Hannah and it's basically about brokenness. The next chapter. So it was a tough, I think, for me. I was telling the girl, it was a tough week going over the 2 chapters. Well, Hannah, the first chapter was about brokenness in God's house. And having a broken heart is not something that anyone likes. I know I don't. But everyone has to deal with it at some point or another. And some people that, who I love, good friends of ours, actually have a lot of brokenness in their life because of, things that have happened, deaths and things like that. But just to, go over that, I'm just going to pray, and we'll go over a little bit about what God has been speaking to me and what the girls have been getting through the 2 chapters. So, but Father, I just thank you for this time. I thank you for the 2 chapters this week, even though they were difficult and just getting to the root issues of our heart, Lord. Sometimes that's hard, and I like to call it heart surgery, but I just thank you for the time that we've had with this book and the growth that we know is going to come through it. Thank you for my friends that are so dedicated and committed with me to continue going through this book and learning what you want to teach us. Holy Spirit, be with us. Be with our words. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So the first chapter was about Hannah, and I've always loved the story of Hannah. Of course, Hannah was barren, and her husband, his name was Elkanah, and she couldn't have any children. And Elkanah had a second wife, who had I don't know how many kids. I can't remember. It's listed how many.
Yeah.
And she just dealt with so much because she couldn't have a child. And back then, even today, not being able to have a child is very difficult.
But the worth of a woman back then was through her children.
Yeah, especially
you really didn't work or anything. So.
Especially a son. A son was the biggest deal.
Mm-hmm.
And also, a son just not carried on the name, but took care of you when you were elderly. Like, there were no nursing homes back then. It was the family that took care of you. So, she had a tough time with that. But I love the story. Talks about how she went to the house of God, and that's why it's called Broken in God's House. And she goes in and she's devastated. She's like, year after year, I come, before you gone, and we come to your house, and I cry out to you, and I ask for this. And one of the scriptures that I love the most is that hope deferred makes the heart sick. We said that last week, and I just can imagine how heart sick she was over that. But so Joe writes, Hannah is completely heartbroken, so much so that she can't even eat. She goes to the Lord's house, she cries out in anguish to God, and she pours out her prayer to God. Could you imagine what that prayer was like, though, after all those years of waiting? It actually says that she was crying so much so that she like shaking and her lips were moving, but like no words were coming out. So when Eli, the priest, sees her, he can't even, he's like, this woman's drunk. Like, there's something wrong with her, because and I can't imagine the visual of that,
Yeah.
what it was taking for her, like hysterical woman. Yeah, pouring her heart out to God like that. And, so the story goes in the scriptures that Eli's like, you're drunk. And she's like, no, sir, I am not. But I will tell you what's wrong with me. And I love that she brought her petition not only before God, but before the man of God to say, can you help me? I need help here. I know God can help me, but I also need help from someone else.
Right.
So, of course, he says, your prayer has been answered. Go home, be at peace. You're gonna have a son, and not only gonna have a son, but he's gonna be the last judge of Israel. Like, hello, it's a big deal. Like, she wasn't gonna have just any child, and I know all children are special, but gosh, could you imagine? Like, Samuel's gonna be the one that actually wanted hearing the voice of God for a nation. So, anyway, one of the questions she says is, where do you go when your brokenness rises to the surface, to the point
highlighted?
To the point
So
where it overwhelms your life? Where do you go? I was telling the girls about my little moment this week. I was just feeling down, about some issues and depressed a little bit about it. And I drove to Target, and all of a sudden, God, it's funny because one of my mentors, his name is Caesar. Last week he challenged us and he said, use some of your time in the car to talk to God and to listen. So I said, all right, I'll try it, so I'm driving. And God literally was saying to me, you have to deal with that certain situation that you've been kind of saying that you're dealing with, but you're not. Your heart's not right. So like fault came up. Fault, hunger, anger, being tired, lonely, and then being tired. Because I liked what we talked about last week was when you're tired, the anger comes out even more, wells up even more. And so the situation was so heavy in my heart, and I was just like, okay, God, I know I have to give it to you. And I just started crying, like this broken-hearted crying. And I said, God, you have to take this from me because I don't want to keep this anymore. So I know I have to give it to you. So I texted the girls. I'm like, you guys got to pray for me because I'm having a moment. I'm in Target parking lot here. And I got in the back of my minivan. And I was like, God, please, pouring my heart out to him. Like, please take this pain and this sadness from me. And that was my prayer. And it did. It lifted. The situation didn't change.
Right.
But that lifted. And I was like so grateful for, God has his timing is perfect. Like, and when I realized, what I was going through, and then here we are going through these chapters. I've read this book before.
Yeah.
We all kind of went through it. But he knows what you need when you need it.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, this is exactly what I needed for this moment. And I was like, so thanks, Joe. I can't wait to see you in November. I'm going to see her in November to let you know, like, what a breakthrough that was for me.
Right.
So.
No, it was really good. Just that you answer that question of like, where do you go? Because a lot of people go to outside sources, and that's not going to find. Again, your situation may not change.
Yeah.
But instead of going through temporary things, go through something that's a little more true, something that can give you a little bit more, encouragement in that time. And I mean, a lot of people go to like. I've been reading a lot of like minimalism books, and retail therapy is like a major thing, especially for women. And that's just gonna leave you in debt and nothing else. So I mean, just remind you. I think that's a good question for you to ask. It's a good question even for you to post like by your bedside or something like that to remind you of just being like, where am I gonna go when all crap hits the fan?
When it hits the fan.
Really.
Yeah. What did you think about, like, I know we were talking too about where you're at.
Hi, Patty.
Daddy.
It's so what resonated with me was Hannah. She had no reservations anymore. She kind of just hit the end of her rope. She was just crying out to God, laying it all out, and the fact that even in that she was still able to be vulnerable and share with not just anybody but a man and a priest in the church to be like, this is my
Not
issue.
even like share. She like told him like, this is it.
Yeah.
And I know for me, when I'm upset, I tend to retreat inward. I internalize a lot, and then when I cry, it exhausts me, but it makes me feel better, like long term in the end. So I have to keep that in mind for my personal self. like Camille, where you had your breakthrough. It's like I don't want to hold on to this anymore, and it's just bubbling up, and that's what leads to the breakthrough. You know, so I think Hannah set a great example on how where our refuge is supposed to be, where we're supposed to go. But it's hard to calibrate, you know, to trust God in that, because the bottom line comes down to trust.
Yeah, the guarding your heart thing was a big deal in this chapter for me. Like, what did I tell you about? I was telling you before. I had 2 people on my Instagram on the same day post the same proverb. This was it, right? Above all else, guard your heart.
Yeah.
For everything you do flows from it.
And then you like sent me something like 2 seconds later. You're like, that's what's important.
I was like, I think God's trying to say something.
And I was like, oh shoot.
I guess I gotta guard my heart. And then it was in the chapter. Jill listed it in the chapter about guarding your heart. How unbelievably important it is, because you don't realize how it erodes everything. If you just leave something in the back of your mind and you're like, I can't deal with that right now, because that's kind of like who I am.
Yeah.
You compartmentalize everything that happens in your life. Like, I'm going to put that on that shelf for now, because I just can't deal with that right now. And then being tired or whatever brings that anger out of whatever the situation was. Like, God was like, you need to guard your heart. And we were with our team yesterday before our services start. We pray. And I prayed that prayer like for the last couple of weeks. God's been saying, guard your heart, guard your heart. You know, search my heart, oh God, David's prayer. You know, see if there's any wicked way in me, you know, because if you don't, it colors everything you do. It seeps into every part of your life. You don't think it does, but it does.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's kind of one of the things. I wanted to read about what she said about spending time observing the culture in which you live in.
Okay.
That was on page 112. I don't know if you have anything else until then, but yeah. She talks about, you know, when you look at magazines and TV, like what are you putting into your heart and into your mind?
Right.
You know, our good friend yesterday, Vanessa's daughter, it was her birthday party, but Vin was saying, it was such a funny conversation. He was like, you gotta guard your eye gate and the ear gate. He was like, I love him so much. I told him I was going to talk about him today.
Sorry, I didn't just roll my eyes at you, Vin. Megan, don't tell him.
Actually, it wasn't that. It was Vin Panera. Big. And he was like, you gotta guard. You go Staten Island. He's like, you gotta guard everything. You know, sometimes my wife, I don't know, she watches some things that I shouldn't watch them. I'm like, honey, I gotta go. He was calling Agnes out. Agnes, I love you, but he was right. No, so anyway, so she talks about, like, your hearts need to be protected, and you know, when we surrender ourselves to God fully, we die to ourselves. You know, your appetites, you know, your dreams. You got to be careful about what you're adding to that. I mean, some of the things we've been doing, we've been building, you know, businesses that we know God has placed in our hearts. The three of us are going out and trying to do new things, and a lot of times that will be something that can be distracting from. You know, I said to Vanessa on the drive here, you know, making sure we're taking the time to spend it with God. A lot of times, you know, when I'm very all or nothing, I'm an extremist. So I'm like, all right, I'm doing this business thing. And God, you understand, I'm going to put you on the sidelines just for a few minutes, you know. I'll spend 5 minutes with you today. And it's like, God's like, that's not going to cut it. You know, it's not going to be enough. So I love what she said about, you know, making sure that you're spending your time making more room for God in you, not less.
Yeah.
The more you do for
Him,
Him,
are pushing forward in these things, you have to make the more time for Him.
Yeah. The more you do for Him, the more you better be in His presence. Yeah. And that's what I got from that. So there was just on page 115 I wanted to read.
Yeah. I was going through it, and I was
Go ahead.
just going back to what you were saying about Hannah, like how she like confronted, but she was like when she was crying and stuff like that. I love how Joe said she may have been broken at that moment, but she was still an AR because she had control of that situation. She didn't kind of just like sit down and be like, oh, I'm just a poor woman, and it's like, yeah, like, you know what, feel bad for me, I haven't been able to have a child. She was like, no, this is what I need. And it says like some of us have backed off from our calling because it's just too difficult or frustrating or painful, so we settle for a version that makes life a bit more like easier for us. And
yes.
So I just love that whole situation of like she is still an AR. She still pursued like that she was going to have a child, and this Yeah, sorry. Just
No,
it
I
was
actually wrote
really
that down. I skipped that over, and I'm so glad you brought that up because it's like the biggest. It was the biggest point for me too. It was like she didn't shrink back when the going got tough. You know, they say the tough get going, but she pushed forward.
Yeah.
One of the books, the movies my family likes. Andy's one of his favorite movies is called Meet the Robinsons. It is so cute. It's such a cute movie. But throughout the whole movie, the theme is keep moving forward. That's the whole thing, and that's now like one of my life sayings is you got to keep moving forward no matter what's happening in your life.
Yeah.
You know, yes, Hannah was having her dream go unfulfilled for years and years and years.
Right.
You know, and then the next chapter talks about Abraham and Sarah.
Yeah.
Right? And how many years did they have to wait for Isaac? I don't even know what it was. It was like 20 years. I don't know.
So many years. She was
A long
more
time.
than their
100.
hundreds. More than their hundreds.
Yeah, and I love how God renames. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself. I just wanted to read these tips really quick, and then we'll get into that. If there's anything else you have to say. The church leader that's listed in the end of the book in the reflections at the end of this chapter says, as a church leader and consultant, know who you are and whose you are and the gifts, strengths, and talents that you have to offer and develop and grow those. Build your character and faith so you develop resilience and emotional intelligence. I love the word resilience. Resilience, tenacity, all these words have been coming out. I love them. I write them down now. It's like, this is going to become my mantra. So
I have
resilience.
like index cards
It's
next to my bed.
true.
You could ask my husband. I'm just
I
index
love that.
cards all over my mind.
We got to find out what's on the index cards. Please let us know. So team with others. This is the third one. Team with others, and do not deny yourself the well springs that give you energy, strength, and joy. But I loved how she was like saying, don't isolate yourself.
Yeah.
Do that. You know, we tend to just say, well, God's given me this to do. I'm afraid to share it with others. I tend to do that. I've done that.
Especially as women, I feel like she talks about that a lot. It's like a
The
competition.
competition, the comparison.
We're not. You think like there's not much room for the women at the top.
Oh my
type of
gosh,
thing,
yes.
Because like once someone starts rising, you're like, wait, you're gonna push me out,
Yeah.
and then you are gonna be the woman in charge because there can never be two women in
love that
charge.
she
Because
addressed
that's
that.
and
I love
it's
it.
not realistic anymore because we need to be women encouraging and empowering other women,
There's not
and
enough
we
women.
should have more women at the top, not kind of pushing them down because you want to be the higher one. No, I really
love that, and I love that you do that with me because like, you always, because I'm always like, but look at this person, what they're doing. I'm like, I can't believe they're doing it. And she's like, isn't it great? Like I said it last week. I'm like, yes, it's great.
I mean, definitely some of those women, I'm like, dang, I could do that too, but I have to check myself, and then she'll come at me. It's not like a natural reaction for me. I have to check myself, and I have to be like, you know what? No, it is great. It is great that there's another woman out there who is hustling and making this money for her family. And you know what? It just empowers me that I can do the same thing. I do have to think of it that way.
I love in chapter 7 that she talks all about that, like how she tells a story about the singer, how she sang. I never knew that about Jill, that she has a great voice.
Yeah.
You go, Jill. But she used to sing, and she talks about how there was some singers in her church, and she was listening to the way they were singing, and she would compare herself and try to like go home and practice the way they did.
Yeah.
And she was like, but wait, I'm not even trying to, I can't be them. You know, she came to that conclusion, like, I have to push myself beyond that moment of, little jealousy or whatever that is. That's a natural tendency. Doesn't mean that we have to submit to that and succumb to it. We have to be better than that and say, God, help me not to. Help me to champion that next woman and not say, and try to distract or detract them from doing what they're called to do. Let me get behind them. And I'm telling you, God blesses that. I mean, I know that's what happens with us. Like, as soon as I see you put something out on your YouTube channel, I'm like, yeah. Like, what is she doing? Yeah. That's the way we need to be.
Yeah.
And we're not. That's not the norm.
No.
Especially out, in the world. But as believers, we need to totally be that, and be each other's champion.
I'm going to go back again.
Go ahead. Go.
I just want to give a plug to our prayer and praise night on Wednesday. If you are on Saturday, the way we were talking about how when you're pursuing something for God, you want to be more in the presence of God and pushing forward. I'm going to give a plug. 539 Greeley Avenue at 7:30 on Wednesday. We're just having a time of just prayer and praise. We're just literally just having worship music, so you can just come and sit and rest if you want to. You can cry out, and there's like no sort of like way that you're supposed to be. Just be there, and I think it's a good time for you to just come and just rest in his presence and maybe get some good encouragement.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna
let's just come and be.
give a plug to
true.
Oasis Church.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I forgot we're having Wednesday night prayer. Yeah, so it's fun when we do that once a month. And I know some people were really looking forward to that, just being in the presence and you know, just singing and worshiping. But so chapter 7 starts on page 117, and she talks about, like, do you have friends in your life that stand by you and support you and encourage you? How important it is to have that. Like, when you don't, it just, you feel like, I can't do this alone, you know. And I got my friends.
I read this on page 114. I like read this to her the first time
oh my God, yeah, I forgot about
the first
that.
time I read this book.
Oh,
I sent this to her. I'm like, this is you to me, and she's like, cry. And this girl doesn't cry.
I don't like to cry.
She doesn't cry.
Crying is not a good thing.
It was just like Mordecai and Esther, and it was just like how he like pushed her forward, and he just kept pushing her. It's like, that's exactly who you are to me, and I'm grateful. So find your Mordecais.
That's right. Get someone around you that's gonna believe in you and in your dream and the potential that God has for you. Like, I think that's one of my giftings. You know, is a lot of people tell me that I am encouraging or motivating. You know, and I don't know if it comes naturally. Maybe it does. My friend Trisha at church calls me Pollyanna. Okay, Pollyanna, because it's not really natural. My tendency is actually to be a negative person. That is my gut reaction, reflex. But I have learned throughout my walk with Christ is like, that's not who I'm supposed to be. So now I have to consciously make that effort all the time. When I want to say, man, that lady has a million followers, and I have just a billion followers, and I have to turn it off and say, that's not the way I'm supposed to be. Let me now move forward. Keep moving forward. So anyway, I think that's like one of my goals and my dreams in life is to have so many women to be able to say, you can do it. You know what I mean?
I've seen them change the world, because like maybe you weren't the one who like did that in that sphere or whatever, but you're like, that is my girl right there. Like, that is my girl.
It's like, yeah, I'm your cheerleader. Let me be your cheerleader.
I will never be a blogger. Or never be a blogger. But you girls, go for it.
We like to write.
Never.
She's good at like talking. We're not good at talking. The only reason we're doing this is because she's good at it. She pushes us out of our comfort zone. So anyway.
I don't even know where to look in the camera.
So many pictures we take.
We took the picture last week. Sorry guys, if you saw it last week. Everyone's looking at the camera and she's looking down.
Because she didn't know which camera. We had two.
Oh, yeah, then there was the one
Right, and you were looking at the laptop, and we were looking at the other camera. And so the picture looks like, you know. I'm like, look at this. Hopefully we did it right this week.
We only have one camera.
So like we did say, look at the green light finesse. All right, anyway.
Sorry.
I just like
We
want
wish you were on our car ride, guys. We really wanted to take you along on the car ride. Next time we will. Maybe we'll do like a live video.
Next time we said we should have had a GoPro up on this
We're
windshield.
definitely not the We're on this journey
We're just
with
trying.
you. We're completely on this journey with you. It's not
Like, I know I said before the car ride, my kids are like, Ma, you gonna go put your holy face on now for the live, for your video live? I'm like, I don't have a holy face.
We're all struggling.
We're very real people and struggle with the same issues everybody else does. So anyway, let me see. Let me get back on this.
Sorry.
We're Labor Day vacationing in our minds. We're on vacation mode still. Okay, so let me just see. Oh, so she talks about competitive relationships. Proverbs 14:30 and 27:4 says, envy has a damaging effect on the person we are designed to be. We were just saying this. It's hard to embrace the life and future God has for us when we are constantly wanting someone else's future. So we're worn down. Our relationship with God is worn down because we are not embracing the Azer identity that we've been given. So if we think about what you said, that Hannah realized, you know, she said, I'm going to be the Azer that I need to be and stand up. If we, each one of us as women, fully understand your identity, who you are in Christ, and then that each of us has a unique
Yes.
thing that he wants you to do.
Yes.
You don't have to compare. You don't have to be jealous of the other person. You say, oh, that's great for that person. Yay, you.
Right.
And now this is what I'm doing. This is what
Right.
God has for me. And I'm so blessed by that. I'm a lucky girl, you know.
Yeah.
It's like that really spoke to me.
There's a meme that I come across more often, and I wish that people actually looked at it. Say straighten someone else's crown and don't talk about it. After, you know, straighten another queen's crown and don't talk about it after you.
I love that.
And like that, you know, I told my husband all the time, when I go back to work, I can't work with women because every job I've had,
Unless it's us.
like, every job I've had has been with women, and there's always a competition there. And when there's competition, I shrink back. Unless it's sports, I'm totally competitive sports. But like if it's a personality thing, or you know, I don't feel like I'm better than anybody, and I don't feel like anyone should treat me that way. But there's always that inherent way. So I shrink back because I don't want to be that person. So, anyways, it is huge that I have 2 girls, so I feel like a huge sense of responsibility. And I want my mom did that for me, and she made me a strong person because she was always showing me like how to keep pushing forward even with that opposition. So I want them to see like us doing this. I want them to see other women in their circle
Supporting others.
I want my girls straightening other women's crowns and just being like, you know what, you're just let me help you.
And you don't have to be jealous. You can be positive and, you know, support somebody else. And, you know, it's being the better person.
Yeah.
Like, should we all want to? Like, women are so catty. And it's true.
Knowing yourself. I feel like just right here with you is huge because I think a lot of times I speak for myself, I don't know myself sometimes. Especially like going through different seasons. Like I went from being a college student to being a wife and a mother. You know, it's like there was hardly a seamless transition. It kind of just happened. Yeah. And I didn't take time to really know me. So if you know yourself, you know your strengths, you know, so like, you know when you're not a blogger and you're like secure in that. So that gives you security. Like whatever, they're great at blogging, let them do that. That's not my thing. And that's fine. I feel like if we all really understood our niche, our giftings, like all of that, then we would be able to propel one another and not be like
Plugging that Myers right.
That's right.
We've been talking about it, like, you know, I actually put all those little links. I'm like, guys, you're going to get on that. Because if you do not, if self-development is so important. If you don't know about yourself and how you're wired, it's like you're, what do they say about a shotgun? Like the shots get, they scatter.
Yeah.
It's like instead of like a laser, a laser shot. It's like you want to be that laser and not be, scattered all over because you don't even know what the heck you're supposed to be doing.
Around you that are doing exactly the same thing you are, but also that are not, because we need women in every sphere and understanding. Yeah,
we need more women. More women.
Know yourself.
Know thyself.
I think we literally say that.
I can't believe you say it all the time.
It's just know yourself. Know yourself.
I think we're programmed to think it's a selfish thing, and I struggle with. I feel like I'm taking time to get to know myself. That's weird. Why do I want? I should be knowing other people. But if I don't know myself, I don't know how I can belong to other people for a long time. People, my face screams snotty.
Yeah, because they don't really know you.
Right, and sometimes I'm sarcastic, but it's not like a snooty thing. So, but I had to learn how to kind of like how I came off to others.
How do you adjust yourself? You mean
Right? Yeah, like I didn't change. I still am sarcastic. But there's a thinking process behind it too. Yeah, and you're doing a public service. I feel
I agree, though. I think you are. If being self-aware, is a trait that I think everyone needs to have, because then you'll pop up and you'll go through that whole fault thing.
Yeah.
That's true.
All the time by yourself.
Yes.
Like, and
you'll work through it.
And if you're constantly not knowing your triggers, and you're not self-aware, like you are doing a disservice to the public. It's true.
It's like your husband's like, please go back to bed. Start again. Let's start this day over again. So that was about the Azer and stuff. Let me see what I wanted to say about. He talks about struggling with loneliness, misunderstanding. I like what she said about the Apostle Paul going public with the broken relationship of the 2 women in Philippi. I don't even know how to say it. Eudalia.
Look at these clowns fighting.
that's really what he said. Smack those ladies and get them going. Because he's basically saying, make sure they get reconciled.
Yeah.
Hello, because the church. The formation and the furthering of the church depends on it. That's how important he felt it was to talk about two women that were disagreeing.
And it's still true today.
And it's still true today, absolutely. And I like how she writes, Matthew 18 is the process by which we need to work out our issues. Like, you know what? Some people don't like to do that because it's sticky.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm going to get uncomfortable because what's going to happen in this conversation? And I'm going to have to now confront this person about how I feel or whatever. And it is. It's uncomfortable. But this is the way God said to do it, to work out your issues. And if you don't work out your issues, how could we become one body, unified, moving forward and in the purposes of God? We can't. And the enemy is one.
Yep.
And I'm not about that. You took my crown. You didn't help me, fix my crown. You took my crown. So on page 125, she talks about, are we humble and secure enough to celebrate the amazing things happening in another woman's life, even if her gifts are not our own? Let's just get beyond it now, folks. I think it's pretty evident. And then page 126 and 127, she talks about female mentors and what it looks like to be that for someone else and getting into that equipping mode or role. I know for my life I didn't have many, and I think that's why I am the way I am. Because I had to search out somebody to train me, to teach me. I didn't have a lot of older women in my life. My husband and I, we started, our church 15 years ago, and there was really no one. I mean, we had mentors, we had a couple, but I didn't feel like especially close to them. We didn't live near each other. Like, we lived near each other, we do life together. I didn't do that with anyone. They kind of gave us tips. When we had problems, we'd call them up, we'd hang out, but it wasn't someone like walking beside me and saying, I've been a little further along the road, let me show you. So I think that's why it's so important to me to do that, to train up the next generation to do the same thing. Because, what happens? Why don't we? What are some of the reasons why we don't?
Competition.
Absolutely, competition. But also, I think, even more than competition and not knowing, your identity, it's it's dying to self. It's kind of messy. Because you get in somebody's life. Oh yeah, we gotta get going. It's messy, and also I have my own world. I got my family. I got So it's hard. Try to become the best mentor you can. She has a whole list of things that you should follow, 5 steps in the book. You gotta find ways to raise up. The last line I wrote was influential women that will raise up others. Do it. Do whatever it takes to speak into someone else's life. And then, if you really need, find someone who will speak into yours. So, guys, I don't want to keep going. We can go on all afternoon, whole morning. We're already at 33 minutes.
We literally say at the beginning of each thing, we're like, I don't know if we have enough to talk about. And then we're like,
shoot. Yeah. And I write these notes, and I'm like, I don't think this is going to be enough. Yeah, that'll be crazy.
Anyway, thanks for joining us.
See ya.
See you later.
Hands. We always do